after that morning at the liquor store where the new wine was poured out, we Holy Ghost.
Shaba.
We drove to Charleston, South Carolina, and we played at a church called Seacoast Church, which the Hislips, I think, used to go to. It was really intense. We went into prayer a little bit before. We were the only band playing that night, so we had kind of free reign to do what we wanted, and from the leadership and the pastor there, Josh, and youth pastor there, Josh, and so they said, do whatever you guys want. So we're like, great. And we went into prayer, and just, I think, and travail hit us, especially for these kids. It's oriented to being relevant to the kids, and then they have lots of kids, lots of people, and they have a really cool thing going. It reminds me kind of like a Hillsongs kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we had a sense that in prayer that a lot of these kids were hanging around the thing because they liked the aesthetics of it, but they never really encountered Jesus, which is probably true of most of anything we do in the Western world. But so we just went into prayer, and travail hit us for justice for the orphans that had grown up in God's house but had never met the Father, which is my big thing. And then Aaron got wrecked with the fact that, well, you can tell them that, Aaron.
Yeah, like we were in prayer, and like before the show, and we were just praying, and travail hit like Randy and Josh, and I was just like I guess like it was a mixture of just like hungry to see God poured out and frustrated that like we hadn't seen the type of breakthrough that had been prophesied over us. Like I wanted to see the promises of God released. Like He promised like us things and put things in our heart to see, and really I was hungry for them and frustrated that we hadn't seen them, and just like crying out for God to break out.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what a lot of like our travail, like before the thing happened. And really I kind of, like I was talking to Randy, like I think the reason that we saw the outpouring was because we birthed it in weeping and travail and crying out for God. Like like the Lord granted it to us because we got to the place where we wanted it bad enough.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was just like, I really, like, my heart was feeling dead during the whole prayer. I was just kind of praying, trying to press in, but I was just angry and frustrated. And then I just started crying and really couldn't say a whole lot after that. And then we kept on like going into like more prayer. But yeah, and like I couldn't shake it like all the way up until we started praying. Like during our first song, I was just kind of like sitting on the drums crying, and like I was looking at Randy. Every time I looked at him, I started crying because the fire of God was like in my heart.
It was intense, man.
So it was just
we actually postponed the show 30 minutes because we were messed up in prayer. And we're supposed to start at 7:30, and we didn't actually get on until about 8 because we couldn't get off the floor in the prayer room.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you think, like, I don't want everyone to leave this place. Like, why am I even going and playing a show right now, you know? But we kind of had to peel ourselves up and kind of, like, figure out what to do. But, so we get on the stage and we start playing, and immediately we just felt there was an open atmosphere, and that the realm of impossibilities were open. And so we just went for it. Josh preached during the interlude, and it was awesome. You want to tell me about what you said?
The statistics that have come out from like Ron Luce, I think, about according to the trend, if you follow the trend in the past 60 years or whatever, according to the statistics, only 4% of our generation after they leave high school, once they go off to college, keep the faith, evangelical, Bible believing.
Yeah, 60% of those that graduate from high school,
96.
96?
Yeah, only 4% keep the faith.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow, that's higher than last one I heard. Oh my goodness.
And so I was just, I mean, that's an emergency right there.
That's an emergency.
And that was just resounding in me that this huge group of people that have grown up in church, have grown up in Sunday school, and then for them to walk away, and so I said that to everyone, and I said, if I had to guess why that is, a lot of these kids played the church game and grew up in church but never encountered the real Jesus. They were just playing the church game, encountering the program, encountering the events, but weren't encountering the real Jesus. Because once you encounter the real Jesus, how can you walk away, and how can you leave that? And I was so gripped by it, because I was looking at these kids. I said, some of these kids are in that boat.
Yeah.
And I told them straight up, I said, some of you aren't compromised. You're playing games. you're coming to church every week, but you're not encountering the real Jesus.
Yeah.
And I said, do not settle for that. Do not settle for church without Christ. And I said, whatever it takes, encounter Jesus, the living Christ. And I just felt a lot of unction and just the burden of the Lord that some of those kids, it was a crucial juncture where they had to make a decision that night.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they were going to be,
Yeah.
who knows, God knows where. And I knew
Yeah.
that some of them were were dabbling with drugs and with sex and those kind of things. So I said it straight up.
Yeah.
And then just prayed.
Story is like the girl we heard about in Tequila, the awakening, this 15-year-old girl. We somehow push that off as we think it's an exception to the norm right now, but in fact it's not. It's in our youth groups and it's in our homes.
Yeah.
And this is where the generation's at right now, and we can know that not just by being here on the road, not just prophetically, but we can know it statistically at this point, which is it's an emergency. And so while we're there, the cry that arose in my heart in prayer was that if some of these kids they didn't encounter Jesus that night, that in a year they'd be totally given away. And so there was an urgency in our heart to see the Lord break in, and that's what birthed the travail. And so we got up and sang Psalm 18 after Josh prayed, and just worship filled the room. And I just really felt like the glory of God filled the room for real. And we finished our set, and we finished with Awesome God, and they just sang it like long after we finished, and we went back into Psalm 18 and we're just singing it, and I just gave a kind of a pseudo altar call for compromise, for addictions, for everything, and kids were raising their hands, and like Lord was just doing some deliverance. So we get off the stage, and then it just starts to break out, and there's like 6 things happening at once, but we get off the stage. I say, meet us at the table if you need prayer. So we run back there. A kid runs to Steven, says, I got a marijuana addiction. Steven starts praying for him. He gets delivered. Steven's getting wrecked. At the same time, I look over, and Josh and Aaron are praying for a girl.
Yeah, we prayed. This girl came up. She had a disease in her eyes. I can't remember the term.
Macular degeneration.
Is that the one?
Yeah.
And the disease, basically, your eyes continually go worse until eventually you can't see. And she was born with it. And so we just believed that Jesus would heal her and asked her to lay her hands on her eyes. And we put our hands on her hand and just invited the Holy Spirit, asked Jesus to heal her eyes. And we're praying. And after a few moments of praying, I said, are you feeling anything? Or can you see if it's any better? And I held something in front of her face because she couldn't see things that were close to her. And so she was like, she had tears in her eyes, and she said, when you guys started praying, I felt burning in my eyes. And I was like, that's a good sign. And she said she says it feels a lot better. And I was like, about how much? And she said probably, I was like, from 1 to 10, how much better would you say it is? And she said about a 5. So we kept praying, and we prayed again, and same thing. I asked if it was better, and she was completely healed and just started crying. She was wiping tears out of her eyes, and Jesus really met her, not just in her eyes, but you could tell she was feeling God's presence and just God's love over her. And so
at the same time, so this kid walks up to me, and I could tell he's not really he didn't really look like he fit into the whole trendy Christian kind of thing, and he comes up and he starts talking to me, and immediately I got a word from him that he was having trouble with it at his house, with his parents, all this stuff. So I just started to prophesy over him and just start to take authority of an orphan spirit. One boy breaks down and starts crying and grabs me. He's like holding me, weeping. He's like this 18-year-old guy. It's all tough, and he's holding me, and I'm like holding him, and he's like crying, and I'm telling him that he's a son, and I'm just prophesying over his destiny. Later on that night, talking to one of the youth leaders, I found out that he was one of the worst kids in the youth group. They didn't have any breakthrough with him. He just came and caused trouble and like messed with people and talked to the girls, and so he was totally like encountered, like the worst kid, like there. And so Charleston was just like crazy. We just felt like there was a new level that the Lord gave us, and the prayer that was birthed in my heart, and kind of as we're on this journey, going from glory to glory, level to level, is this prayer that's birthed in my heart, mainly through reading John G. Lake stuff, but is God remove every wicked thing in me that does not believe.